Hello all. Today I will be talking about being trans and growing up. This is what I wrote in my diary earlier this month. Be around those who do not make you feel ashamed of or shame towards yourself and who you are. Shame is used as a form of manipulation. When I reference people in my life who have used shame to manipulate, not in reference to all shame. That's like a little note. I should not feel shame for needing to rest and recover after all I have been through. I'm chronically ill now. And I'm 20. I was stuck in flight or fight. That kept me on at all times, but not fully aware of what was going on. Just a narrow focus of what I wanted to do. My distractions, constantly filling my mind and time so I don't stop and think, because I didn't think I would ever stop going. I have this one memory. I was in grade 1. I was hanging out with the boys and people would see me as a tomboy, and it wasn't really until this one day in grade 1 that I realized that the boys who I was hanging out with, they didn't see me as a boy. I was like, I'm one of the boys. I didn't want to be seen as a girl hanging out with one of the boys. I just thought they viewed me that way. I was like, it must be because I have long hair, because someone had mentioned how you're not a boy, you have long hair. So I wanted to cut all my hair off, and I tried cutting it all off that day when I was at my grandparents'. But I was caught and I was told, you're gonna look like a boy, and I was like, that's the whole point. I want to look like a boy. I wanted to be seen as a boy. And I was told that, no, you're a girl. Your brother's the boy and you're the girl. You have to be doing certain things, looking a certain way, acting a certain way. It's your duty. From that day, I felt so ashamed. I had to hide who I was to please those who were closest to me and everyone around me. My mum took me to get my hair cut because I'd already started cutting my hair at my grandparents before I was stopped and shamed for it. And I was like, I want to cut all my hair off. But the shortest I could get it was to a bob, because like my mum didn't want me to regret it. It's not that she didn't want me to get all my hair cut short like this. She'd had her hair cut short a lot of times. She didn't think there was anything wrong with girls having short hair, but she said you can get it to a bob and then you can get it like shorter in the future if you still want it. But me being little, I thought she doesn't want me to be like that either. So I just kept it all in. My mum, she raised me and my brother in such a way that she was so open and loving, and we could wear what we wanted, look how we wanted, have our hair how we wanted. She was a psychologist as well. Not that she always just did psychology. She had many jobs over the years, but amazing mum. And when I'd come out to her after all these years, it was hard for her to understand, because yeah, I am quite a feminine person as well. And she thought that with how she raised me that I'd be able to trust her. But it's because of that other side of my family and all the shame that I felt. I was scared of being rejected by her as well. There was no way I could handle if I was rejected by her, which she wouldn't reject me. But I was little. I didn't understand. And this is why we got to teach kids from a young age about different sexual identities and different genders, because we know who we are. So if we don't let kids know that it's okay to be a trans boy, trans girl, non-binary, gender fluid, all these different identities, demi-boy, demi-girl, there's so many. If we don't teach kids even just the basics that it's okay if you don't identify as a boy or a girl and you have been raised as such. It's okay if you don't identify as that. It's okay if you like the same sex. It's okay. If we don't teach them that it's okay, someone else is probably going to get to them first and teach them shame and that it isn't okay. And then we're going to be, there's just going to be more and more people depressed and hating life and wanting to not live and feeling too scared to come out, feeling like it would be easier to just end it than to even attempt a life where they are accepting of themselves. Growing up, all I wanted more than anything in the world was to go back and be reborn as a boy. I loved learning about women and what they went through. I thought women were so strong and loving. But I was a boy who was told from birth that I was a girl because of how my body looked. I loved women and femininity, and also masculine women and feminine men who were expressive of their femininity. My love for women and people alike or similar to me and those so different from me only grew over the years. From a young age, I knew I wanted to be a boy, and as I got a bit older, I could see myself one day being a young man in his 30s with a wife. I had many crushes on girls because I would get crushes on my friends mainly, or people I had something in common with. The funniest thing I had in common with a guy that caused me to crush on him a bit was that we had a crush on the same girl. This was in grade 1. So yes, people can know their sexuality from a young age, as well as their gender. Kids know who they are. We know who we are from a young age. From about 5 is when people have a really great concept of who they are. And if you don't allow people to express themselves as who they are without shame, then it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be so difficult. Because I felt so much shame around my identity, I felt like I couldn't tell anyone. I've worked through a lot of things over the years, and the hardest thing for me oh my gosh, was going through puberty. Oh my gosh. When my chest grew in, when I got my period, I thought growing up that maybe when I got my period, I thought maybe then I'll feel like a girl. But when I got my period, it was like a nightmare. I was like, I can't believe this has happened. I kind of got to a point where I was like, maybe it won't. And as my chest grew, when I was like 14, they were about a B cup. And then, trigger warning, eating disorder. So I was really depressed, and I heard that having less sugar can make you feel less depressed. So I cut sugar out of my diet. That's what started my eating disorder. And I started working out every day for hours, and after 6 months I'd lost 20 kilos. I was being told by people, oh cool, that's great, good work. And I was feeling so confident and happy. But the thing was, in that time, I cut all my hair off from being this long in those 6 months, and my chest went from a B cup to barely an A. So I didn't realize at the time that what I was feeling was gender euphoria, not me actually curing my depression. That's also part of the reason I didn't realize I had an eating disorder, even though one of my friends was like, "You've got an eating disorder, you gotta get help." And I was like, how dare you say that? Like, I'm finally feeling better. So it's interesting looking back to see how my gender dysphoria played into my eating disorders over the years. And then I would get gender euphoria. I can't believe that in America right now, so many laws and things are being changed, rights being taken away from trans people, trans youth, because people are saying to protect the children. When I was 14, I didn't think that there would be any way that I could continue going forwards, because I didn't think I would ever get to a point in life where I would be accepted as a guy. I thought, I'm stuck as a woman, so what's the point in continuing? I'm not allowed to be who I am. I'm not allowed. I felt so much shame, so much fear growing up. I was like, how am I supposed to be out when I know half my family just won't understand and the other half won't accept me? When I was 16, around that time I went to boarding school, and for me, going to boarding school was like, so I was about 15 when I went. Going to boarding school was my just last hope, my last try at life, right? I'd be getting away from my dad and that side of the family and able to really just try and be me. When I was 16 at boarding school though, I was talking to one of my friends about graduating. Now I was only in grade 10 at this time, but she mentioned how just the year before, someone at this Lutheran boarding school was able to transition to a guy, have his name respected, and wear a suit to the graduation and the formal. And then that was when I truly felt hope for the future. And I could see myself living a future. And over the next year, I was starting to accept myself as a guy. And I was gonna start telling people by grade 11 I'd moved back home, because when I had realized, oh, I think I'm a trans guy, I felt even more uncomfortable going to boarding school, like living at the school. It was boys and girls, this boarding school, but I felt very uncomfortable identifying as a guy and living in a house of girls. So I decided that if my mum wasn't going to move up so I could stay at that school, then I would just come back home to my small town, I guess. So that's what I did. In grade 11, I decided that I would come out to my friends, but I realized I'm still going to have to see my dad and his side of the family, and the stuff that they would say about trans people and even homosexual people. Me. Like, some of them knew I identified as bisexual. I identify as pansexual these days. I know some people are a little bit iffy with the bi-pan thing, but to me, I see bisexual as can love more than two genders and can have some bit of preference or something, whereas pansexuality I see more as loving more than two genders with no preference. So that's my distinction in short. Anyway, the stuff I would hear that family saying, I was like, what's the point of trying to come out now if I'm just going to feel hated? And the people at that school as well, a lot of people not accepting the mistreatment I got when I'd come out as being bisexual at 14, and the mistreatment that I still got over the years was disgusting. Small towns can be so backwards. There's some studies that have found a trend in trans youth being bullies. I was so full of anger growing up. A lot of my anger was taken out on my brother. I'm so sorry for that. In remembering and unraveling how I've felt so hurt by everyone in life being treated like a girl and not a boy as I wanted to be. I treated my brother how other people treated me and how I was hurt. In some ways, that was kind of my way of trying to be like, hey, if my brother doesn't like being treated this way, why is everyone else treating me like this? And I would be told, you're a girl. And I was like, I don't want to be treated like one. But it wasn't because of the misogyny. Like, obviously, misogyny should not exist and women should not be treated differently just because they're women, but just wanted to be a boy.